Hello, everyone. Dr. Taranella here, back to discuss a little bit more about the ketogenic diet. Today, we're going to talk about macronutrients and how this kind of fits into the overall ketogenic diet. This is basically what I go through with my patients when I'm starting someone on a ketogenic diet. You need to know how much protein, fat, and carbohydrates you're going to be consuming. And so I'm going to kind of break that down for you so you can do that yourself. So let's kind of dig into it here a little bit. So, what are macronutrients? These are basically the big part of our diet, ways to categorize where calories come from. And so we have carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and ketones. And each one of these has a specific, ketones has a question mark next to it because ketones traditionally they're not thought of as macronutrients, but we can kind of think about them separately because they're not quite a fat. They're definitely not a carbohydrate or protein. They behave a little bit differently than all of these, so we can sort of think about them as a separate category. But if anything, they behave more like fats because fats will turn into ketones. Um, so each gram of food has a specific macronutrient quantity. And meaning there's a caloric value associated with each gram of food. And that's going to be different for each of the macronutrients. So carbohydrates, fall into carbohydrates and protein have for 1 gram they equal 4 calories, and for fats 1 gram equals 9 calories. This is going to become important when we're trying to figure out what your overall macronutrients are for any given day. So first, what you want to do is calculate your basically how many calories you should consume in a daily basis. And this may, you may be thinking, oh, well, I want to make sure that I, lose weight, and so I want to be in this range, or I burn this many calories today exercising, so that means I need to calculate for this. Don't worry about those kinds of things. You want to kind of simplify this process, and what I usually do is have people start with isocaloric, meaning you want to calculate how many calories it would take to maintain your weight. And so we'll get into that here in a little bit. And then you also want to underestimate your activity. So in those calculators, when it says, highly active or sedentary, I always, even for myself, would estimate that as sedentary. It just gives you a little bit more leeway, is the reasoning. So, so basically, you want to go to you can Google this phrase here, daily caloric need, and you'll get a bunch of websites and apps and things like that. And and then it's going to ask you for your age, gender, weight, height, activity level, etc. And so you want to basically, underestimate for the activity level. Um, and so So the next section then would be to, so I'm going to go and actually do this calculation here. So on this, I use this website called nutritiondata.self.com, and so you go to the daily caloric need, and I'm going to do it for myself. So male 37, about 160 pounds. And then you put in your height as well, which would be about 5'10", 5'11", and notice here that it's marked as sedentary, and then hit calculate. So this is my, basically, if I don't calculate how many calories I'm burning, or if I'm not trying to lose weight, this is basically what it is for me to not gain or lose weight. I need to consume that many calories. And that's assuming, the first law of thermodynamics. So we're going to back up here, back to where we left off. Where are we at here? Calculating. So I kind of skipped over this part. So we know mine's 2400. Just remember that. So we'll just kind of back up and go through some of this. So second would be, so first determine, what your daily caloric need is. And so I just did that for myself. And second would be determine how aggressive you want to be on your fat consumption. And for me, when I'm having people start out at this, I try to go lower and then gradually kind of work up to a higher percentage of fats. But for instance, if you are going to be doing 50% of your calories from fat, that's somewhat aggressive. Most people are consuming about 30%. If you're eating more of a standard American diet, would be about 30%, maybe even 20%. So going up to 50 is, it'll be a change, no doubt. And always protein is going to be about 20%. So another way to calculate that is basically half of your weight in grams of protein. So that one, pretty much will stay pretty static. And then basically you go through and calculate each macronutrient based on the percentage. So and we'll go through that calculation, and then you assign daily grams to each one. So this third one here is, first you do calories, and then you multiply the percentage by the calories. So if it's 2400, you multiply. For fat, if we're doing 50%, you do 0.5 times 2400, and then step 4 would be divide by that calorie. So if it's fats, would be divide by 9, and that will give you your grams. And the same for protein and carbohydrates, you just change to 4 calories. And so that's me. And so if we're doing 2400 times 0.6 equals 1400, and then just divide by 9. So that gives me 160 grams of fat. And then if you're going to do carbohydrates and proteins, multiply by 0.2, that gives you 4800, and then you divide by 4, giving you 120 grams of carbohydrates and 120 grams of protein. Yeah. So the math, equation kind of looks like this, and I didn't complete this fully, but you could see this is kind of the equation. So 0.6 times 2400, and then you divide by the grams of fat. So it would be, or divide by the calories, which would be 9, and that would give you your grams of fat in the same kind of equation. And so if you're changing, your fat is 0.5, or your fat is 70%, it would be 0.7, and then you have to adjust the carbohydrates and protein accordingly. So, for my protein, 80 grams of protein would be sufficient, or you could go up to 120, which percentage-wise is 20%. But if you're doing half of my weight in grams, it would only be 80. So just to give you an example, there's a little bit of leeway there. Just as a note, though, if you get too much above 20% for your protein, you're going to that protein is going to start being turned into carbohydrates. Certain amino acids will readily turn into carbohydrates, and so as a rule, I try to keep the protein around 20% or lower. And so this is always the next question that I get is, well, how do I get that much fat in my diet? And that's going to be the topic for next time. So if you want more, something more tailorized, customized to yourself, just visit our website and you can contact us there. Or you can also get more detailed information on our blog, which there's a link to it in the browser there. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.